Hi, and welcome back to Inspired Alchemy with Lizzie. This is episode 74. And today, I know I've talked about this topic a couple of times here and there, but not really in a way that maybe really hit. And I didn't really know how to talk about it until I was asked. So, a very dear friend of mine asked me, because I asked everybody, I'm like, hey, what would you guys like to hear about? And she said, I would love to hear a little bit about your backstory and what it would be like for someone who's interested in magical stuff, like the magical world, but is intimidated to get into it. And when she asked me this, it hit me differently. And I was like, okay, I have some ideas. um, and I remember I'll give you a little backstory on her, and then I'll go into the episode. So her and I have been friends for a couple of years. She was my coach at one point, and I remember telling her, "Hey, you know you're really magical, right?" And she goes to me, "I don't know if I feel comfortable with that." And I go, "Maybe one day you will." And now I see her and she's thriving and she's doing Reiki and she's doing all of these beautiful things, and just the energy coming off of her is just so beautiful and so aligned and so magical that she found her way. And I think that it is amazing. And this is someone who was intimidated by the magical world, even being called magical. And I do have people in my life who are like that. Not everybody that I am close to or associate with feel comfortable in the magical world, and that's okay. And to me, magical is not just, I'll get into it, but it's not what you think it is. So that being said, let's get into it. If you're curious about magic, or the magical world, or alchemy, this is where we start. It's taken me 74 episodes to get here. But it's better late than never, right? I love the fact that this topic was brought up because I know a lot of people, like I said, who are interested in the magical world. They're interested in alchemy. They're interested in energy work. They're interested in all of these things, but they don't know where to start. And it feels scary because of different ideas that people have when you say the word magical. So this episode is for the curious ones. You feel something inside of you pulling at mystery, intuition, energy, but you're unsure or a little worried you'll do something wrong. If you're drawn to this deeper work or the magical world in general, I want to tell you that you don't need to jump into anything intense to begin in any of this. You don't need tools, you don't need rituals, and you don't have anything to prove to anybody. This is your journey, and it's not going to look like anybody else's, and that's okay. We can gather tools and tips and tricks and things from people, but how we create a magical world around us and how we do alchemy, while there is, like I said, things that will help, it's really up to us and how we're feeling inside. Inner alchemy is different from other people, and our lives are different. So how we get into it, how we evolve, all of these things is going to look a little different. I just want you to know curiosity is enough to start. You don't need a big to-do. Just be curious. It's normal to feel intimidated, especially with all of the things floating around when we talk about the magical world. It's been portrayed in extremes. So it's either been romanticized of, oh, this is super glamorous and this is super powerful, or it's been demonized as dangerous and dark. But real alchemy, the real magic, is real energetic awareness. And it's much quieter than it's being portrayed. This is not about becoming something mystical. It's about becoming more aware of what's already happening inside you and around you. Magic is, the way I understand it now and how I'm trying to reverse engineer it, this is not about control. It's not about controlling outcomes. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about the relationship with yourself, with intuition, with your body, with your energy, and with the world around you. And that relationship doesn't have to start off dramatic. It can start off very, very small. And in my honest opinion, and again, this is my opinion, when it starts off too dramatic, just like with anything, a lot of people will back away. It's kind of like when I talk about small, sustainable steps to get where you want to be. This is exactly the same thing. It's all part of it. That curiosity, that one next step, that one next step. When we go too big, too hard, too fast, we get scared. Maybe we'll get bombarded by things, and then we step back and we shrink. Small, sustainable steps. So I was also asked, like I said, to bring kind of my path into it, but I'm going to try to do this in the best way that I can. Because, again, it's hard. I've always just been this way. So to reverse engineer it, as I've said in other episodes, is kind of challenging for me. To explain the timeline is hard because curiosity has just always been a part of me. I was raised Roman Catholic, so anything that was outside of that framework was not encouraged. It was weird, it was this, it was that. And even at a young age, I remember people telling me certain things about how I shouldn't do these things. But this path always felt right to me. And again, this is my path, my opinion. But the way that I was being taught in church did not feel right to me. Even when I was going through classes, I was like, oh, this is fun to learn. This is not how I feel. And this is me at 6 years old, 7 years old. So it never really felt like that, never really felt right. So I just, even from a young age, just started doing little things myself. I followed my curiosity. Sometimes it got me in trouble. But I always felt like there was more to the world than I could see. I was a kid who loved spooky things. I wanted to dress like all the spooky things for Halloween. I was a witch most of the time. I was a black cat. I was a vampire. There was one Halloween that I was Barbie, but you know. But I was that kid that was fascinated by the mystery and the energy and the unseen parts of life. And yes, when you're a kid or you're first starting out, you're like, oh, magic, cool. Spooky stuff, cool. And yeah, I dabbled in things, but I look back now and they're things that I wouldn't recommend for beginners or really recommend at all. For example, when I was in 5th or 6th grade, it's the first time I used a Ouija board. Now, everybody can do whatever they want. I know spirit boards have been around for a long time. But at the same time, my experiences with them, while I'm not going to say that they were bad or evil or anything like that, it's just, for anybody starting out, is not a place that I would go. Because when you have the pure intention, especially as a child, to connect with things outside that you can't see, you're going to connect with things outside that you cannot see. Because all of this is about curiosity and intention. That's what life is. That's what energy is. So that was an interesting experience. then I didn't use a Ouija board again until I was in high school. And I remember sitting around it with a couple of my friends, and my body started to shake. And I'm like, what is this? And now looking back, I realized during that part of my life, I was I was really kind of awakening to different things. Your hormones are doing different things, physiological, you know, your emotions, your brain is in a different spot. So you're growing and evolving in a different way. And I look back and I go, wow, that was a lot of energy that I was trying to pull through me. And I did. I got a lot of information. I got a lot of downloads. I had people um, connecting with me and that kind of thing. And I look back at that part of my life, and that's when I had a lot of energetic things happen. And I can go into those stories, but I'm realizing that that's when a lot of this really, really started, is my awareness with all of that. So while we might be excited and we might be like, oh, I want to experience this, I want to do this, and we're looking and searching for intensity, maybe that's not the best place to start, especially if you are already very open to energy. It can be very overwhelming, and then it could scare you out of really finding your magic and what it really means to you to be magical or conduct alchemy. So I will say that that experience that I had the last time I used a Ouija board, because I will not touch them anymore. Um, Again, not because I think that they're bad or anything like that. I just personally, it's not a tool that I would use. And so that that point in my life where I was shaking like I was cold even though I wasn't cold, it was just that massive amounts of energy flowing through me. And that really happened on and off. That happened a lot through my teenage years. And then it happened every so often up until a couple of years ago when I really started to do deep energy work. And I started to really recognize the flow of energy, what it was doing, what it was asking of me, what it was asking to flow through, and how it was asking to flow. It wasn't until then that that stopped happening. Now, I will say that it did happen recently, but that's because I've gone through this and I've started to go through this huge shift of identity, and the alchemy has kind of ramped up a little bit. So at that time, I was like, oh, I know how to handle this. And once the shaking started, I was like, okay, I need to back off and I need to figure out how this energy wants to flow through me. And I did. And within less than a minute, I was fine. And I was already feeling better. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I know how this works now. And I share this because it's an important part of my story. Not that I had these intense experiences, but that I've learned how to safely hold them through grounding, regulation, discernment. So if you're listening to this and you're curious and you're thinking, I want to start exploring energy or my intuition, I want to again reiterate, the goal is not intensity. The goal is awareness, grounding, and safety. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but I am big on safety. So I want to reframe magic, because when people think of magic, yeah, we think of witches and we think of spells and all of that. And while the ritual and the spells and all that can be fun, that's not really what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about noticing how different environments feel in your body, recognizing when something feels aligned and when something feels off, paying attention to your intuition, feeling energy shifts in conversations or spaces, and understanding your emotional patterns. Now, I do have a story for you, another one, so I will go off on a tangent again. I have a friend, and he was going to an event, And he was, even though he's been doing alchemy his entire life, again, like me, it's just a part of who he is. And so at one point he's going to this event and he's like, well, I don't want to be overwhelmed and in this crowd and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, why don't you think of it as an experiment? And I said, start noticing the different people in the room, and instead of feeling all of the energy at once, focus. What do you feel from this person? What do you feel from this person? What do you feel from this conversation? And it kind of changed his perspective on how to go into big groups and big spaces. And it is how I started out. I just started doing the things, and I would pick out different people and, okay, well, that person, maybe I'm going to talk to them. Well, that person, maybe they're feeling this way. This is the energy that's coming off of them. And I kind of used it as an experiment in a game. And it helped me with my social anxiety, and it seemed to have helped him as well. And now he can go into spaces and not get as overwhelmed as he used to with the energy that's in there. And it was a really cool thing to hear. And to me, magic is a heightened awareness of life as it actually is, not as we perceive it. It's realizing that you are an energetic being who responds to the world, not just a mind observing it. And that awareness can begin very gently, like I mentioned with the stories that I've shared already. So, baby steps. We talk about the small, sustainable steps. Where do you start if you're curious or intimidated? Or curious but intimidated. Maybe you could be curious and intimidated. Yeah, that. You start with your body. Before energy work, before intuition exercises, before anything, you learn how to feel safe in your body. And even if it's a little bit of safety, then you can do a little bit of intuition work, a little bit of safety, a little bit of other alchemy that you are looking to do. You have to get to know yourself, your body, your nervous system, and where you feel comfortable. And you can begin by simply noticing, how does my body feel in this room? Kind of like the story I shared about my friend. How does this energy feel? Does it feel heavy? Does it feel light? Does it feel curious? Does it feel fun? Does it feel oppressive? Does it feel like it's suppressing you, squishing you? Or does it feel expansive and happy and light? What does it feel like? How does it feel when I talk to certain people? And you might be like, oh, I've talked to this one person and they were not at all what I expected. And it could either be I expected them to be mean or this or that, but then they were a different way, right? Or I expected them to be nice and then their energy just shifted and it felt bad, right? So it's playing with all of this. What's happening within your body? What's happening within your chest? What's happening within your stomach when something feels on or off? So aligned or misaligned. How does your body feel in those instances? And you start off very small with something that you know is aligned. You know for sure. Feel that in your body. And then something that is misaligned. And you feel that in your body. And then you start playing with it. And this is how we build. It's like a muscle you have to work. This is how we build the intuition and discernment. And this is how we build up to energy work and being able to mold energy and your own energetic field to what you want it to be that's aligned with you. This is intuition in its earliest and safest form. You can journal all of this stuff. You can keep track of it. You can sit quietly and observe and notice your breath. You can walk outside and see how different environments affect you, how different places affect you. I know that in my personal experience, and what I still do to this day, is when I go somewhere, I notice the energy that's there. How is it affecting my body? Even in spaces that I've been in before, if they switch, like there's a coffee house that I always go to, and sometimes it feels really light and airy and expansive. And sometimes I go in there and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to get my coffee to go. So, as with anything, energy shifts and changes. And as like you, shift and change. That's okay. It doesn't mean that something is always going to stay that way. It can mean that it's going to shift. It doesn't mean that it won't always stay that way. And it may always stay the way that it is. And that sounds convoluted, but it's just how things move and shake up. And you don't need anything external to begin any of this. Presence is your first tool, staying present. And that has been a theme, a topic lately of staying present. And this is how we move. This is how we grow. This is how we evolve. Presence in the moment. And I want to mention that another part of this is learning boundaries. When I was younger, curiosity led me to experiences I didn't fully understand. And while they did shape me, they also they also taught me that discernment matters. You don't have to chase the intense experiences to be spiritual or magical. In fact, chasing intensity often pulls you away from the grounding, which is what I was saying at the beginning. So we can get so caught up in the intensity of things, and this is life in general, not just this, that we don't see what is actually there. We're chasing that intensity. We're chasing that big hit of happy hormones and whatever it is, because we want to feel that we're doing something. But sometimes these smaller steps are what lead to real change, real evolution, real alchemy. Not the intensity that can knock you off your center. We want to find our center, not be knocked off of it. And yeah, the intensity is cool and it's exciting. But is it really going to bring the change that you're looking for? Society wants to show you, and social media wants to show you that the intense is the change. But I disagree. It's the slowness, it's the curiosity, it's the rest, it's the stillness, it's the integration, it's the awareness, it's the perspective shifts, all of these things that change. And it changes slowly. Just like the body doesn't like to be quickly changed because it can cause, I don't want to say trauma, but it can cause the shift too fast and your body's like, whoa, and it kind of goes into shock. The same thing happens when we try to chase the intensity of energy. Small, sustainable steps are what leads to the biggest change. And real growth comes from learning how to regulate your energy, not overwhelm it. And I know I keep talking about the small, sustainable steps, but so many of us just want to dive in, me included. I'm guilty, which is why I'm talking about this. But curiosity paired with safety is what creates the sustainable growth. And here, this is the biggest thing for me. People talk about magic as if it's something outside of us, like it's something that we are not. But magic is deeply human. And that is something that I will always say. My goal and my purpose, no matter how young I was and who I am now, it's always stayed with I get turned on by the fact that people, and I'm not talking in that kind of way, but I get lit up when I see people finding their magic, finding their keys, really stepping into who they are and noticing, hey, yeah, I'm magical. I can do this. To me, that's me looking at a human being remembering who they are. So being magical is not separate from being a human being. It's inherently who we are, and we have forgotten that. Magic is sensing the emotional tone of a room, knowing when we speak, knowing when to speak and when to stay quiet, feeling drawn to certain musics, places, or people, noticing patterns in your life and learning from them. All of this is magic because it leads us into who we are. It helps us with our intuition. It even guides us into more curiosity, into maybe the path that we're supposed to be going down, or our purpose, or whatever it is. Learning how we are magical individually and our own unique magic will also help the collective of humans. This is not fantasy. That's not just awareness. It's not just about intuition. This is humanity. Humans are magical. And I've always thought that no matter, like I said, no matter what is going on in the world, we have been told that we are nothing. And I have my own beliefs on that. But I want you to know that you are something. Human beings are inherently magical, and I will keep saying that. And it's time that we all find that part of ourselves. It's time that we get curious. We start using discernment. We start using our intuition. And we start moving in a way that's sustainable. It's time to start creating inner alchemy, healing, growing, evolving. This is humanity. Because the future is human. And with that, your path is not going to look like mine. And that's okay. It's not supposed to. That's what I said before. Your path is not going to look like somebody else's. That's okay. I said that before. My experiences were messy, still are messy. This episode is messy. They're confusing, sometimes overwhelming. And mine required years of learning, grounding, and integration. And I'm hoping that my stories will help you go quicker. Don't take the time it took me. Learn from my mistakes and take the time it takes to take less time. You don't need to start where I started. You start slowly, you start safely, and you start gently. Magic, alchemy, and energy work, they're not about escaping reality, which is what we're told. They're about becoming more aware of reality, more aware of yourself, and aware of the things, the people, and the energy around you. And this awareness begins with presence, with curiosity, with learning to feel safe in your own body. So if you're curious, that is enough. You don't need to leap. You need to simply take one small step forward and let the path reveal itself, one grounded step at a time. So while I did my best, I know that this episode was messy. And if you want to hear more about some of my magical stuff that I started off in, feel free to contact me. As always, I want you to remember that in a society that tells us that we are broken, that we are insignificant, that we are divided, that we are disconnected, and all of these other things, I want you to know that you are not broken. You are not insignificant. You are worthy. And while some people might not feel this. You are magical because you are a human being. We are not disconnected and we are not divided. Please remember, the future is human. And we're all doing the best that we can. And that's all I have for you today. This is Inspired Perpetual Alchemy. And if you are here, you are an alchemist. Thank you for following my messiness. Thank you for being here with me. And until next time, keep creating alchemy.